We know that pornography affects your brain chemistry. We know that pornography is generally not good to watch, that it can affect your cognitive performance. We know that pornography is not great for your body, but this is honestly just the tip of the iceberg. As a matter of fact, if you dig deeper, there's all kinds of effects of pornography use that people aren't talking about socially, relationally, spiritually, and we're going to get into all of that in today's video. So first things first, we know that pornography has lots of short-term effects. You know, people get brain fog, they're a little groggy afterwards, maybe it affects your libido for a couple of days. Everybody talks about the short-term impacts of pornography, but we don't really care about short-term effects because we can bounce back from those. The question we want to ask is, what are the long-term effects? And it turns out that the conversation gets a lot sadder once we look at the long-term impact that porn use has on the viewer. As a starting point, we know that in relationships, 56% of divorces cite their partner's porn use as the primary reason for the divorce. So let's just really think about what's going on here. Somebody is watching pornography, they're in a marriage, and that partner doesn't want them watching, and they continue to watch. And then what starts to happen, and we know this because of the research, is they start to show up less in the relationship. They are not around as much. They're not emotionally present. And afterwards, if this persists long enough, then the sex life starts to get affected because the person chooses pornography over sex with their partner. And at its lowest level, there's actually a study that showed men who watch pornography have less capacity for empathy. So we're talking about the relationship totally tanking just because somebody has watched pornography. Now, that's just the relationship aspect of it. Let's talk about the physical effects that pornography has on the body. In 2001, the rate of erectile dysfunction among men under the age of 40 was 5%. Today, in that same demographic of young men, the rate of erectile dysfunction is about 30%. And pornography is one of the leading causes of this. Pornography increases our arousal threshold, and if you watch enough of it, then when you have a real life experience, it's not going to be stimulating enough to keep up with all the pornography you watch, and as a result, you cannot rise to the occasion, pun intended. So the problem here is that when you have poor sexual experiences, then the relationship quality is affected. Then you start to develop performance anxiety. And if we go a little bit further, we see that there's research that would suggest people who watch pornography experience infertility, experience body dysmorphia leading to eating disorders. I mean, this can literally springboard into all kinds of damaging effects. About 6 years ago, a book was launched by one of the world's leading urologists, and he said that men requesting penile enlargement procedures is at an all-time high because guys are watching pornography and feeling insecure about their bodies. So your entire sense of self-worth, body image, and sexual performance are totally tanked when you watch pornography. Now, not only can this springboard into worse activity, I can tell you as a fact that it does because most of the clients that come to us usually reach out when they have escalated their behavior. It started innocent and then it escalated to a massage parlor, a strip club, an affair, or just watching some really obscure content. But I'll give you an even better example. Ted Bundy is considered the world's most notorious serial killer of all time. There are 29 documented cases where he abducted, he raped, and then murdered a woman. 29 different times he did this that were just documented. And the day before he was executed, he had thousands of media inquiries. He only chose one interview with a guy named James Dobson from Focus on the Family. And in that interview, Dr. James Dobson asked him, why do you think that you had a relatively normal upbringing, you were a lawyer, how do you explain your life ending up the way it did? And he sat for a minute, let the silence kind of sit, and then he said, I know from my own life, and I can tell you for 90% of the people that are in this prison, and he was in a maximum security prison, pornography use is where a lot of this started. And this was the answer nobody was expecting. You know, everybody thought it would be his childhood or anger or something like that. And what he went on to explain is that his porn use started very innocently. He lived in the pre-internet age, so it was more magazines and VHS tapes and that sort of deal. But eventually, those things didn't give him the thrill he wanted, And so he started to seek out in-person sexual experiences. And eventually those didn't give him the thrill he wanted. And that's when he started to escalate into more, unfortunately, murderous behavior that resulted in the death of 29 women plus himself. That's an extreme case, but it illustrates the point that pornography use is not innocent, even if you're watching relatively vanilla content. It is the springboard, it is the starting point of a story that usually ends in a really bad situation. And like I said, our clients will attest to that first and foremost. Another side that people often don't talk about is pornography addiction is actually a gateway into other addictions. So we've seen this before with, maybe clients who don't take our program seriously, or even just, talking to people online. A lot of people have this, amazing turnaround. They quit pornography for a couple months. And then you dig a little bit deeper into their story, and it turns out that they've just replaced pornography with masturbation. They've replaced pornography with sugary foods and poor diet. They've replaced pornography with workaholism. Replaced pornography with alcoholism or drugs or video games or gambling. Pornography is often very attached to other addictions. And I'll tell you, some of these people that I've spoken to have said, I was able to quit cocaine. I was able to quit alcohol, but I cannot for the life of me quit pornography. This thing is ruining my life, and all of the methods that help me get clean of those other addictions isn't working. So look, I've scared you enough. I'm sure you get the idea. Porn has devastating impacts in every single facet of your life. But let's talk about you. Okay, let's talk about your situation. And let's evaluate how serious is your situation actually, because maybe you say, well, I'm not Ted Bundy, and I don't think I'm actually really experiencing this that badly. Let me give you 2 questions that you can ask yourself to really evaluate your situation. Okay, let me give you the first question. Were you exposed to pornography under the age of 15 years old? If the answer is yes, you are way more predisposed to literally everything I've talked about in this video. And I know that has nothing to do with how often you watch or the frequency that you're watching or whatever. But the honest truth is, if we really get to the bottom of most of the data, most of the research that's been done with pornography use over the last 10 to 15 years, the leading indicator that you will be addicted and that you are likely to fall into these traps of pornography is early exposure. So, were you exposed before the age of 15? If you were, then you are predisposed, and this is something that you need to take really seriously. My second question to you is, can you go 6 months without watching? Now, you might hear that number and go, that's ridiculous. That's such a long time. You would never ask that for any other addiction. But actually you would. If you were addicted to cocaine and you couldn't go 6 months without it, maybe you're not addicted if you're only doing it every 6 months. But we know that it's probably not going to stay at every 6 months. It's probably going to become every 3 months, then every month, then a couple times a week, then a couple times a day. It escalates. And so we want to ask ourselves really honestly and really earnestly, can we actually go that long without it? Because that's what real freedom is. It's not just that you can abstain every once in a while. It's not just that you can go 30 days. We got lots of life ahead of us. We need to go longer than that without it. Let me ask you just straight up, my friend, can you go 6 months without watching pornography use? Now, if you are answering both these questions and you're realizing, okay, I got exposed under the age of 15 and I cannot go more than 6 months without watching, I want to let you know, and I just need to talk to you real talk for just a minute. You gotta take this seriously. You're on a slippery slope. And all the things that I've mentioned in this video are going to become a reality if you don't take it seriously. Like I said, all of the clients, nearly all the clients we work with, they confess to us that they never thought their situation would reach this point. They always thought, they heard these stats, they heard these stories, and they pushed them away. They separated. They said, that's for someone else. That's not for me. My story's different. And then they wound up in the exact same place needing help. Now, I want to encourage you with something, okay? The fact that you made it this far into this video tells me obviously you are taking this seriously. And there is something you can do to prevent the onset, and that is to be wise. And we know that people who are wise look ahead, they see where things are going, and they make decisions that either get them towards a desired outcome if it's in the future, or away from that outcome if it's something they're trying to avoid. And so if you're hearing this and you're saying, I don't want those things, maybe you don't have the full extent of them, but you don't want them to manifest fully, now is your time to act, nip this thing in the bud, be wise, and do something about it proactively. Your future self and your future loved ones will thank you. And look, I'm proof of what happens when you do get stuck. I experienced almost all these things that I talked about to some degree. And at the same time, I've been clean of pornography since 2016. I've helped thousands of guys experience freedom as well. We could all attest that when you quit pornography, it's the best decision you can make in your life. And not only do you get removed from all these things, but all these areas, your mind, your spiritual life, your relationships, your emotions, your productivity at work, literally everything starts to get better when you quit. So if you want some help or some support in this journey, check out my Instagram. I'm very active over there. It's Sathiya Sam, and I'll put the link in the description as well. We post content every day to help you in your recovery journey. Plus, my DMs are always open. I'd love to speak with you and see what I can do to improve your situation. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And if you really did enjoy this content, I know you're gonna enjoy this video. Make sure you check it out. I'll see you in the next one.